What's up, everybody? My name is Dana Harris with Young Gurus Math Tutoring, and I'm back again to drop some more math jewels. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you about how to solve a literal equation. And a literal equation is one where you're given more than one variable. So it may be two, three, four, or even more variables. But we have to solve for one specific variable. It may be x, it may be y, it may be p, s, t, whatever. Let's get into the examples. Let's start off with x and y. So I want to solve for y. And I have 10x plus 5y equals 80. Now, in order to solve for y, I need to get the x term to the right side of the equal sign. So I need this x over here. I'm just going to simply subtract 10x there, subtract 10x on the other side to keep it balanced. 10x minus 10x is 0, so that's gone. Bring down my 5y. 5y equals 80 minus 10x. All right, now this is 5 times y, so the inverse operation of multiplying by 5 is dividing by 5. So I'm going to divide by 5 there, divide by 5 there, and divide by 5 there. All right, now 5 divided by 5 is 1. Most people say they cancel out, but technically 5 divided by 5 is equal 1, and 1 times y equals y. That's the multiplicative identity property. 80 divided by 5 is 16, and minus 10 divided by 5 is 2. We keep our x. So if I solve for y, I get y equals 16 minus 2x. Now in this case, a problem like this might ask you, what is the value of y when x equals 3? Okay, so let's say if I want to find out what y equals when x equals 3, then I'm simply going to say y equals 16 minus 2, and I'm going to substitute 3 or tree for x. And here we just do the math. 16 minus 6, y equals 10. So the first thing we did was we solved for y, and then we were given a specific value of x and figured out what y would be when we use that value of x. All right, now that's a basic example, still kind of similar to most of the equations that you see, but in this time I want to go a little further. Okay, so let's say if I have the example ax minus bx equals c. Okay, and let's say I want to solve for x. I'm gonna go ahead and solve for x, but notice it has a, b, c, and x. So that's 4 different variables. I'm just gonna solve for x. Well, notice there's 2 x's, so that makes this one a little tedious. Well, this term and this term have an x in common, so we can factor out an x. So basically what I'm doing is I'm going to take an x and put it there, but I have to make a parenthesis. So in order to get the values in parentheses, technically what I'm doing is saying ax divided by x minus bx divided by x. Okay, that still equals c. Now here in this case, those x's, x divided by x equals 1. X divided by x equals 1. So I'm left with x times the quantity a minus b, because remember, a times 1 is a, b times 1 is b, and that equals c. Now there's one last step. Notice that over here x is multiplied by the quantity in parentheses. So that's x times the quantity a minus b. Well, the opposite of multiplying, or the inverse operation of multiplying, is dividing. So I'm going to divide by a minus b. I'll keep it in parentheses just to make it look good. And once I do that on both sides, this over that is 1. 1 times x equals x, and x is equal to c over a minus b. At this point, you can take it out of parentheses. That's up to you. It's just a matter of how you like it to look. All right? So that's another example of solving a literal equation. Let's maybe do a few more. And hopefully this is coming through clear. Remember, the process is still using order of operations. The only difference is there are more variables and less numbers. So let's say if I want to solve for x again, but I have the equation Rx plus Sx over T equals 1. Now remember, one of the good things about equations is there are multiple ways to solve equations, but the process is always going to be the same. You must use inverse operations, okay? So in this case, if I want to get x by itself, let's go ahead and get rid of this fraction and take t to the other side. Well, a fraction bar represents division, and the opposite of dividing by t is multiplying by t. So on both sides, I'm going to put times t here times t. Or you could put it in parentheses. It's up to you. All right, so here they would, t divided by t is 1, so I'm left with rx plus sx, and that equals t. Same thing as the previous example. They both have an x in common, so I'm going to factor out an x. And when I factor out that x, remember it's rx over x, so we're dividing by the common factor, equals t. Okay, so here, cancel, cancel, so x times r plus s is equal to t. And then remember, x is multiplied by the quantity in parentheses, so I'm going to divide by r plus s, divide by r plus s, and here those cancel, and I'm left with x is equal to t divided by r plus s. Okay, so that is basically how we use inverse operations to solve a literal equation. And just in case this can't be seen, I'm going to say t divided by r plus s. And if you notice, that answer is right here as well. Okay, so those are some examples on how to solve a literal equation. Remember, the process still shows inverse operations, and as long as you keep the equation balanced using inverse operations, then you're going to solve for the variable that you want to. And actually, I just thought about one more type of example that we can show. And there's several different types of examples. You may see these examples in formulas and things like that. So let's say I have A is equal to bxt and then plus c, okay? And I want to solve for x again, all right? Well, c is by itself, and it's using addition, so I want to actually take that c to the other side. So I want to subtract c here, subtract c here. Notice a minus c, they're not like terms, so we're going to separate them. We're going to say a, actually, let me write a capital A, keep it like it is. A minus c is equal to bxt. Now notice this is b times x times t. So I can actually, the opposite of multiplication is division, so I can actually divide by bt together on both sides. So bt, and now the b and the b cancel, the t and the t cancel, so I have a minus c over b times t equals x. All right? Young Guru's Math Tutor, and I got the solution to your math problems.